Okay, so I think we can get started. Thanks again for joining. Welcome to another Codacy Talk, where we're going to talk about coding standards, best practices across teams and projects, and how this can help you tackle things like security, compliance, among other things. So my name is Eloisa. I'm here in the Codacy marketing team, and with me today is André Pires. André is our product manager here at Codacy, and he's managing everything that has to do with static code analysis and configurations at Codacy Quality. Just one more thing, as you can see on the screen, by being here and attending this webinar until the end, you'll have a chance to, okay, we're back. You have a chance to win this mechanical keyboard that you can see here. So yeah, a fancy mechanical keyboard to help you program, at the speed of light. So all of you here are already entered. So what do we have planned? Let's just quickly go to the agenda. All right, it's very simple. We're just gonna, Andrea is gonna start by introducing the topic of coding standards and compliance with some really interesting use cases. Then we're gonna give you a live demo of what that looks like at Codacy Quality, if you're using it, or if you've never used it and want to know more about it. And then we're just gonna jump straight into the Q&A, where you can ask us anything about whether it's coding standards or you have a question about the Codacy Quality products. Feel free to ask your product manager, Andre. So without further ado, let's just get started. Over to you, Andre.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks, everyone. Just going back so you can see my picture. She did not see my beautiful video. Okay, so yeah, I'm the product manager of one of the product managers for the quality product. So our main product from Codacy. Really excited to do this, yeah, gorgeous iteration on coding standards. So coding standards was already a feature, but now we just made it much better. Okay, what else can I say? Let's see how are you guys. So I'm really excited to have you here. Hope there's also a good mix of developers, team leads, engineering managers as well. I'm really curious to see how we are, what expectations do we have, when we're trying to create some standards in terms of quality of, to be quality standards and compliance when we have multiple people working with many teams across the same product and also different applications and so on. How do we deal with this whole thing of, coming up with a proper, effective and working agreement about how we do our daily work when building digital products, okay? Cool. So yeah, I know that there's two popular use cases for coding standards, okay? The one way that we can look at this is, okay, by the way, this is how it looks like, okay, in Codacy application. So before you only allowed to create one, okay, this was in beta stage. Now it's, yeah, fully live with much more flexible and allowing, many more applications. And there's basically two main things that people can get from this, according to what's most important, the way you frame this, okay? And I think this is over here, yeah. So some teams or I'll say some developers, they focus more, about setting up the issues that they want to be tracked, what's important about each pull request analysis that, that happens over each code base changes, so talking about teams that are more focused on programming languages, finding patterns that they definitely don't want to go live or to get added to their code base. So it's pretty much oriented towards, when you want to be on top of your work, okay? Popular use cases of this, now that we can actually have more than one coding standard, would be like the typical companies where they organize their teams, into front-end one, front-end, back-end, or even if you have a full-stack team, sometimes you also have infrastructure as well. So we're all talking about, different setups where you want a different set of tools, okay, fine-tuned for all of them. and that you can now finally have these multiple setups, but being reusable per repository. This was a somehow of a pain that we had before in quality product, is that we would have to go, through repo by repo to basically just reuse and reapply this. Now it's much faster and effortless to just, set up this once and for all, and then you reuse it all over your repositories. Okay, you can then switch, upgrade it, keep copies of it should you just want to make some experimentation as well. Another thing that is also interesting that can be leveraged by this functionality is that you can have also different settings or tool setups according to your expectations in terms of teams and developers. Okay, should you have a higher performant, faster guy, you can have different setup, more fine-tuned for them. If you have a faster team that are willing to take more chances, then you want to, safeguard a little bit this faster increments that you get into your code base. Yeah, essentially. Okay. So this feature is both available in our UI. Okay. And both API. If you are, more excited about leveraging, APIs rather than spending time in our UI, sure, go ahead with it. Okay. There's also the chance that you can take advantage of, configuration files. If you're already using some of these open source tools in your local environment, there's a chance that you can just upload them and then have this setup happening much faster. Okay. Now, the other thing that we're also pretty excited to is that there are companies or there are environments where you're most focused is in compliance. So you want to make sure that you set up, ground rules for all of your teams, and you say that is the baseline of expectations in everything that you code that should be, should be common to all of your teams. And you want to basically ensure this on the pull request level. And so you can make this fine-tune things by different criteria. For example, you can select things like severity or security as the must go for all of the other tools and programming language that you use, in your daily work. And this compliance offer is super important and is also something that we're starting to, get requests more and more often. Okay. So let me change now to the look and feel of this. Okay. Cool. So this is my professional account in Codacy. Okay. This is what organization coding standards main page look like. Okay, I have nothing here so far. So let's go ahead and create a standard. Okay, by the way, my starting point is I have 4 repos, 2 publics and 2 private ones. Okay, so this is how it goes. Okay, I can say that, yeah, I'm gonna start by creating the a full stack coding standard. So I'm thinking about this as I think I have 2 repos over there which have both React front-end application, also have some backend. Actually, I don't recall what is the stack of that, but I think it's either Kotlin, Java, or JavaScript once again. So yeah, let's go for it. Okay. So this is the way. Yeah, should be fairly similar to what you know of single repositories code patterns. Okay, if you are familiar with it. Okay, so for obviously what I want to have is a Docker file for sure. I want to have Markdown for the README files, and then yeah, JavaScript for the lint, yeah, and Kotlin and Java. Yeah, there is the things that I use. I can use fairly easy. Yeah, Terraform would be okay. I'm not sure if how is infrastructure being set up there. Anyway, but yeah, XML and YAML, yeah, should be cool. Okay, first step, done. Okay, next step. Now, here's the tools setup, for all of the things that I want. And for example, I can give this a try and just start easy and simple. Okay, instead of just overloading a lot of tools, I can, basically come here with a criteria of, I want all critically medium only items. Okay, nothing here. Oh, okay, makes sense. Check style. So let's just jump right into, yeah, ESLint. Let me give all the critical patterns. Boom. Okay, selected. And let me also use security. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Yeah, 72 patterns. No, nothing. Nothing. I have to filters. Okay. No, I want all of the security things or mediums and criticals. No, it's only minor things. Okay, cool. Okay, let's place them. And then, yeah, PMD. Yeah, okay, as well. For these ones, let's use the same criteria, just as a startup thing. Yeah. Okay. A little bit of the delay. Okay, cool. Yeah, this tool is huge, has a lot of items. Okay, yeah. And then the final thing, okay, let's assume I have this setup. Obviously, it takes more time if we're trying to come up, with a perfect first setup. We can always go back and change it as we go, which is also a nice suggestion in order to, not to be overloaded when you get the first feedback on the first pull request once you set up this thing. And yeah, okay, here's the rep. I was thinking about this Portainer thing. Actually, it's an open source repo I forked from GitHub. And yeah, this is one as well. Okay, so you'll have the list here of all your repos, and you can actually set up the coding standards that I am about to create to one of them. You can also see if they already have a coding standard applied. Okay, if they did, I would replace it. Okay, but I'm okay for now. So yeah, cool. Going to proceed. Any changes will be saved to repositories will actually start to follow this standard. And that's it. Okay, this is how it goes in order to configure a coding standard for the first time. Okay, I see we have some Q&A thing. Yeah.
Yes. Before that,
Yeah.
someone is talking to us in the chat. Francois, I believe, Lecker, if I'm saying this right. Um, I think he has a feature request. So in Codacy's standard wizard, under tools and patterns, exactly, you can he can only filter patterns, but he can't find a pattern by name. Is that something that is being considered?
Okay. Uh, Not right now, but we are definitely open-minded that there are always more useful things that we can do to make the feature more usable. Sure. Okay. You find it useful to find it by name. Okay, I wish there was a way I could search for the pattern by name, not enable, disable specific pattern. Okay, yeah, definitely that's something to consider. We do have a list of filters that can make this more useful, and then we're waiting for feedback and both user experience state, to see what's the most used thing and how can we make this better. Okay, yeah, great. Cheers for the feedback, Francois. Yeah. So is it the same question in the question Q&A?
No, so we have a different question in
Yeah.
the Q&A by Angel Fig.
Yeah.
And I believe it's about the thing you just presented in the demo. What's the difference between one of these and an on-build linter besides the PR checking?
Okay, what's the difference between one of these coding standards and the on-build linter? Okay, the thing is, here the coding standards are mostly focused about setting up uh, tools and linters configurations once and for all, and then just leveraging it for all the repos that you want. Okay, so probably the same thing, but it's more efficient here. Okay, yeah, that's mostly it. It's a centralized thing, centralized setup for the whole organization. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks for your question, Angel.
Yeah. Okay, so here I just did my full stack setup. Okay, I can say that, okay, I think I use this, I'm going to use this setup, quite often. So I know that I have a bunch of more applications that are mostly full stack as well. So I can just go ahead and make this the default coding standard. And what this makes, what's the action, the outcome of this is that now every new repo that you add here into your repository list, okay, actually I have nothing new to add. Yeah, I have already added everything from my Git provider. Now, all of these new ones will actually start automatically to follow up this full stack coding standard that I've just created. And yeah, and that's it. Here, I have this tile where I can actually see, my coding standard name. It has a wrap up of everything that I have set up over there, the target, programming languages, tools and patterns, the repositories that are applied. Yeah. So, Luisa, we have some more questions?
Okay, we have one more. We have an anonymous question here in the Q&A. So this is an interesting one. How do I convince my manager and team to start using coding standards if they don't really see the benefits?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. For example, one of the benefits is that if you're missing one tool check or one setup that you actually invested time to configure better into one repo, and now you want to leverage all of those changes into all of the other repos that share the same stack, this is the best way to do it, for example. Okay. What else? In terms of compliance, compliance is usually something that is driven top down, but you can actually say that this is what makes the team just feel safe. Okay, it's the safety net and the quality assurance that we get and that developers are comfortable with to just say what works with them and what's the best setup for them to work and do properly build digital products. Yeah, that would be an answer, but yeah, it always has to do with with the teams and business culture and how do you work and what's your expectations, how do you do. We know that we have a really diverse developers community, and it changes a lot according to the ways that they do increments, how they do their deploys, how often, what's the level of risk that they're willing to attempt or not, how much locked or not are the releases, or if it's just daily CI/CD thing. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so other question. Hope I have answered your question from anonymous attendee. Yeah. So next one. Yeah.
Okay, so Jovan is asking, can you share coding standards across organizations? So this person has 2 organizations because they use GitHub and Bitbucket.
Okay, really interesting. No, at the moment, there's no easy way to do this unless we reuse the config file from it, which actually, is what saves us the biggest amount of time. Okay, this is an interesting use case. I think we have not thought about it. Okay, this is a nice feedback. So, Luisa, if you can get the name of both askers, we can actually get back with some feedback, about this. Yeah, this is a nice idea. Okay, do we have any more questions in the chat so far?
Hello, sorry, I was muted.
Okay, yeah,
Okay,
no problem.
so thank you, Juan, for also sharing this with us, even though it's not really a question, contributing to answer the Jovan's question. Does anyone else have any questions about coding standards, something they'd like to know?
I see another question here. Second feature request. Okay, please also add the description to the pattern in the coding pattern wizard. I can see the message if I go to the repository's code patterns, but not in the coding standards. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. This is tracked as an improvement to do. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Doesn't appear on the pattern name. Yeah, we know about this. Yeah, cheers for letting us know. Okay, can you give another example of using coding standards besides for specific teams? Yeah, actually, the second use case that I wanted to show is pretty much the compliance thing. Okay, so let's just create a new one. Let's say, yeah, compliance, yeah, first attempt. Yeah, okay. So now I'm thinking more of a broader, use case for the whole organization. Yeah, I want to create this as a baseline. Yeah, sure. No, as a, do this from scratch, not as a baseline. Okay. But, as a tip, this is also a nice tactic, to just save your current repository code patterns if you actually want to mess around with it in experimentations and then you want to throw everything away. You can actually keep a copy of them, via coding standards. For example, so into the copy from a portainer, I could just do this, name my coding standard as portainer, code patterns backup, and then just keep the settings as they are and not change it whatsoever. And yeah, and I'll keep a cool copy. There's also an interesting thing because we know that the first thing that people are going to do when trying out a new feature is actually mess around with it, make some experimentations, rather than sticking with the final setup. Okay, So coming back to the compliance first attempt, yeah, sure. And why not? Okay. Yeah, from scratch. Yeah, this is the thing where actually, I can actually select, for example, all of the, programming languages and markup languages that we have, as a company. Okay. So I'm selecting everything that is, yeah, database, XMLs, Markdown. Okay. All my programming languages that I use, and then actually create here a baseline based on a proper criteria. Yeah. So I can basically, reproduce what I've done before. So definitely I want everything that is critical from every single tool. Okay. Definitely I don't want to make such a mistake. And the other thing that is also we've noticed from data-driven behavior is that security since the beginning is the most picked filter in terms of tools here for the usage of the coding standards. Yeah, so basically I can just, yeah, can go ahead and select security for all of them. Now let's take a look at the other things. Error prone, code style as well. Yeah, code style is quite popular as well. Okay, performance thing as well. So if you're mostly focused into these things, you can make this a high priority for all of the tools that make sense and are related to the, yeah, to your applications and repositories. And this is the way they can actually, leverage all of this, in a, in a fast way to just apply to all of your repos, and then you're ready to go. Okay. Sure, we do get a warning here because we had already, two repositories that were following the other coding standards, and they're going to start following this one as well. So compliance now is taking place as the default setup for all of my repos. Yeah. So this is the second use case of it. Yeah. So hope that's a good answer. Yeah, different example of leveraging the coding standards. Yeah, and the third would be like what I mentioned in between, which is the backup of the code patterns. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Andre, and thanks for asking us this question. So I'm gonna mark it as answered. Right now, we don't have any new questions. Does anybody else have a question for Andre?
Okay. In between, while we're waiting for new questions, I'm just going to show how, for example, for this compliance first attempt, okay, through this configuration, through the main coding standards, we cannot set up individual tools code patterns by config files, okay? And that has something to do because it's somehow a counter pattern, okay? Because config files are fetched on a repository basis, okay? And here we are applying a setup that is shared among many repositories, okay? What if we would set up a specific thing from one repo that gets applied to other ones? It's, it's somehow we lose sight of the independence of having multiple repos. So the way to do this is just to get back to the on a single repository level. You go to the code patterns, and then you click here configuration file. Okay, and then it will definitely fetch what's this specific tool setup from the repo itself. Okay, and it will be synced individually. Okay, without affecting all of the other different repos that still use the same standard. Yeah, this is all in the official documentation. Okay. And yeah, let's get back to the coding standards. So, Louisa, I think we have something new in Q&A.
Yes, we have some questions. So here's one by Shashi Kant. Is it possible to change the severity of a specific pattern?
No, currently I don't think so. I can confirm this with the engineering team, but I don't believe so. What this brings into my mind is that this tool, the coding standards, are definitely a tool to leverage and reuse configurations. But we are aware that the best trade-off that actually fits reality is to have the most generic configuration possible and then have some fine-tuning things by specific cases. It might be by team, it might be by repo, it might be by some other criteria. And it's something we're taking, close attention to, because it's what helps, you doing a better job in the end and fine tune things where it makes sense. So the answer, I think, is no right now. If it's something different, I'll get back to you and get a more proper answer for it. Okay. Cheers, Sashi, for the question.
Great,
Okay,
thank you.
how many coding standards can we create? Okay, so far we can create up to 10 coding standards. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Basically, we've limited this to 10 because we believe that 10 is a round, nice number that should be able and flexible enough to address multiple use cases, multiple stacks, multiple teams, and have proper standards. More than that, it feels a little bit weird, but nevertheless, let's have your feedback. Okay, if you think differently, if you think that more coding standards would be useful, I'd love to have a conversation with you and understand why you need more, how you are leveraging your repos and quality standardization. And yeah, we'll definitely work together and help you to achieve that. If it's to allow more standards, let's go for it. If it's something else that it's still missing, yeah, let's address it as well. Yeah.
All right, this actually seems like a good topic, Andre, to introduce like a quick little poll. Speaking of, how you're using your coding standards, you should have a question now, everyone in the audience in front of you, which is very simple. Do you currently use coding standards in your team? Are you using or not? We have a few people voting. Let's see. Okay, so from what I can see, I'm going to end this poll and share the results with everyone, which is, okay, the majority of people in this webinar are currently using coding standards, but there's still, 36% who don't. Can you share with us in the chat why that is, or what's your, I don't know, what's the case in your team?
Yeah, also, by the way, I think that I had my contacts over here. Where are we? Okay, let's see. Just go back here. Oh, it's after the Q&A, right? Yeah. Yeah, in the end, I'll get to show you my personal email if you'd rather, have a conversation with us and tell us, why you're not using or how does it not, help you through, or what's the pain you're having from, or what, and allows you to use it. Yeah, let's discuss it. I would love to get your feedback. I also hope that obviously the usage and adoption goes higher. Okay, before we had people telling us, okay, we only have one is not enough to leverage these things, it's not flexible enough. So yeah, let's discuss it. Let's see. Okay,
Yeah,
Louise, in the meantime, yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say someone mentioned there should have been a maybe, like a kind of answer. So it's not really a yes or no sometimes.
Kind of, okay. Okay, a kind of is funny. Yeah, maybe you have coding standards, maybe you're not leveraging all of your teams to use it. Maybe it does not fit your use case as well. Maybe there's something else going on there. Yeah.
Yeah, so in this case, for example, Angel's exemplifying that you may have a set of rules, but they're not being enforced. So actually, one more question is who should define the coding standards?
Good question. Currently, coding standards are limited in terms of permissions for the account managers or the account owners, okay? And this has something to do because the organizational coding standards are a super wide code pattern setup and compliance thing for the whole organization. So you can actually apply to all of those repos. So it definitely requires that you have a right permissions for all of those repos. And that's why it's currently this restricted, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you, Andre. And one more wider question that someone is asking is, how does Codacy analyze the code in the repositories?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so basically whenever you have a repository here that's being tracked on Codacy, and then you do an update on it on a branch that you have explicitly set up to be tracked, okay? Whenever there's a new commit being pulled to the Git provider, we're gonna acknowledge that code-based changes. And that will trigger an analysis on our side that we're going to publish the status on the Git provider itself, okay? This is the main use cases. There are some different use cases where actually the analysis is triggered by developers themselves for example, for something that we call the client-side tools, so tools that don't natively run in Codacy, and then you can actually set that repo for you to better control its analysis life cycle, and you trigger it yourself. Yeah, there are two examples of how analysis go in Codacy quality.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this one is answered. That means we don't have right now any questions in the Q&A. So we have a few more minutes if you have any more questions. But just checking if anyone else wants to, send in one last question.
Guess everyone is just super excited about the keyboard. I mean, maybe more exciting to do coding standards using it. What do you think?
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, if we come to the end of this webinar, that means you're that much closer to receiving potentially a keyboard. But it's okay if we don't have any more questions, then we can, close the webinar. But before that, if we can just, go back to our deck and
sure.
just to share a few last minute things. Yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
No, yeah, I was just saying this, yeah. Just leaving here our contacts, Codacy and Twitter and LinkedIn. Here's my personal email, okay, should you want to reach out, with, wider feedback on this feature. Have you liked it? Have you not? How is it good? What's your expectations? What is still missing for you to be one of those persons that actually answered yes, you're using it? And yeah, the stage is yours for the rest. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let me just see if we have one more question. Oh, okay. So a few last things. First of all, is just to thank everyone for coming today and for asking so many questions. And this webinar is recorded, so you'll be able to watch it later on demand if you wish. And before you go, we really appreciate your feedback, as you know, where you always share some really good ideas with us for next webinars. So if you fill the brief survey at the end of this webinar, before you close this tab, it will pop up on your screen. You'll also enter a draw to win some Codacy swag. So there's two prizes here today, actually. You can win this, the swag that you see here in the screen. It's a custom Codacy laptop sleeve for, 13-inch computer. So yeah, if you're interested, you just wait until the very end of the webinar, send us your feedback through the survey, and, you can be the winner as well. And if you want to stay tuned for any more of our webinars and live talks, you can see here, you can follow us on Twitter or LinkedIn. And again, like Andre said, feel free to contact directly with any more questions. We have our roadmap here in the links. So I believe we've come to the end, and I'll hope to see you at the next talk. Thanks for coming. Yes, here's a very useful link to our Codacy community as well that Andrea shared in the chat. You can check out community.codacy.com if you have any more product feedback or questions or anything you'd like to share with us. But yeah, thank you.
Yeah, cheers. It was great having you here. And yeah, it's not the end of it. Reach out to us, and there's many different channels. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
Bye. Thanks.